sister's worth. I never thought a text message would be the thing to finally break my heart, but there it was, glowing on my phone screen at 6:30 on a Tuesday evening. My sister Margaret had always been direct, but this felt different. If you're not going to babysit 4 kids, then don't even come. I sat in my kitchen, the one I'd lived in for 30 years, and read those words 3 times. The evening light was fading through the curtains, and I could hear my husband Robert in the next room humming along to an old song on the radio. We'd been married for 34 years, and in all that time I'd learned that some hurts cut deeper than others. This one went straight through. Margaret was my younger sister by 6 years. We'd grown up in a small house in Ohio, sharing a bedroom until I left for college. Our mother used to say we were like 2 peas in a pod, always looking out for each other. But somewhere along the way things had changed. Life had gotten complicated. Margaret had married young, at 22. To a man named David who worked in sales. They had 4 children in 7 years. Emily, Jake, Sophie, and little Mason. Beautiful kids, every one of them, with bright eyes and loud voices that filled every room they entered. I loved them dearly. I really did. But lately Margaret had been asking me to babysit, more and more often. At first, it was once a month, then every other week, then almost every weekend. Robert and I were both 63 now, looking forward to our retirement years. We'd worked hard our whole lives, raised our own 2 sons, and now we just wanted some peace, some time to travel, to visit the national parks we'd always dreamed about, to sit on our porch and watch the seasons change without constantly rushing somewhere. The request that led to that text had come last Sunday. Margaret called while Robert and I were having breakfast, asking if I could watch all 4 kids the following Saturday. She and David wanted to go to a wedding 3 hours away and didn't want to bring the children. I'd explained, as gently as I could, that Robert and I had plans. We'd booked a weekend trip to the mountains. Our first real getaway in months. It wasn't extravagant, just a little cabin by a lake where we could rest and reconnect. Margaret's voice had gone cold on the phone. "I see," she'd said. "So your little vacation is more important than family." I'd tried to explain that it wasn't about importance, that we'd been looking forward to this trip for weeks, that maybe she could ask David's parents or hire a babysitter. But she'd cut me off. "Forget it, Helen. Just forget it." And then came the text about Thanksgiving. Our parents had passed away years ago, Mom from cancer and Dad from a heart attack 2 years later. Thanksgiving had become our tradition, our way of keeping the family together. Margaret hosted every year at her big house in the suburbs, and Robert and I always came early to help with the cooking. It was one of my favorite days of the year, surrounded by family, the smell of turkey and stuffing filling the air, watching the kids play in the backyard. But now Margaret was uninviting me. Not just me, but Robert too. Unless I agreed to babysit 4 energetic children, ages 3 to 11, whenever she needed me to, the ultimatum was clear. I sat there in my kitchen, feeling something crack inside my chest. Robert walked in, saw my face, and immediately came over. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I showed him the text. He read it slowly, his reading glasses perched on his nose, and then he let out a long breath. "Well," he said quietly. "That's hurtful." Robert had always been a man of few words, but when he spoke he meant every syllable. "What should I do?" I asked him. He pulled out the chair next to me and sat down, taking my hand in his hands were weathered now, marked by years of work as a carpenter, but they were still the same hands that had held mine on our wedding day. "You should do what feels right to you, Helen, but don't let anyone treat you like you're less than you are. You've given your whole life to family. You raised our boys beautifully. You took care of your parents when they were sick. You've been there for Margaret more times than I can count. You don't owe anyone more than you can give." I thought about his words all evening. I thought about them while I made dinner, while we watched the news, while I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I picked up my phone and typed out a message to Margaret, Cool, then my $50,000 isn't showing up to Christmas either. I stared at those words for a long moment before hitting send. Then I canceled my attendance at Thanksgiving. Let me tell you about that $50,000. It wasn't money I'd been planning to give Margaret exactly, but it was money I'd been setting aside. 3 years ago, Margaret and David had mentioned wanting to remodel their kitchen. It was outdated, they said, and with 4 kids, they needed more space. I'd been quietly saving money ever since, a little bit from each paycheck, some from the inheritance our parents had left us, some from bonds Robert and I had cashed in. I'd planned to surprise Margaret this Christmas with a check, enough to finally get that kitchen she'd always wanted. It was going to be my gift to her, a way of showing her how much I loved her, how proud I was of the family she'd built. But now, sitting there with her cruel text still burning in my mind, I realized something. Love shouldn't come with conditions, and neither should family. Margaret called within 15 minutes of receiving my text. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. By the 4th call, Robert gently suggested I might want to answer. When I finally picked up, Margaret's voice was different. Smaller somehow. Helen, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I was just so stressed but I interrupted her. I'd spent 63 years being the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over, the one who bent and adjusted and made room for everyone else's feelings. Not this time. Margaret, I love you, I love your children, but I'm not your on-call babysitter. Robert and I are in our 60s now. We've earned the right to have our own lives, our own plans. I'll help when I can, gladly, but I won't be given ultimatums. There was silence on the other end. Then I heard something I hadn't heard from my sister in years. She was crying. Not angry crying or frustrated crying, but the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and real. I'm drowning, Helen, she said quietly. I'm drowning, and I don't know how to ask for help anymore. David's job keeps him traveling 3 weeks out of the month. The kids are wonderful, but they were so much work. Emily is struggling in school. Jake has soccer and baseball and scouts. Sophie won't sleep through the night, and Mason is only 3 and into everything. I haven't had a full night's sleep in months. I look at you and Robert, and you seem so peaceful, so happy, and I guess I resented it. I resented that you get to go on weekend trips while I'm here changing diapers and breaking up fights. My heart softened, but I didn't let go of my boundary. I understand that you're struggling, I really do, but taking it out on me isn't the answer. Have you talked to David about how overwhelmed you are? Have you looked into getting regular help, maybe a babysitter 1 night a week so you can rest? Have you talked to anyone about how you're feeling? Margaret sniffled. I'm supposed to be able to handle this, I'm their mother, and there I was. The things so many women of our generation were taught. That we're supposed to be able to do everything, handle everything, be everything. And if we can't, we've somehow failed. Margaret, asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But you can't demand it from people, and you can't punish them when they can't give you what you need. We talked for over an hour that day. Really talked, in a way we hadn't in years. Margaret admitted she'd been feeling resentful and isolated. I admitted I'd been feeling taken for granted. We both cried. We both said things we'd been holding in, and slowly, carefully, we started to find our way back to each other. But I didn't take back what I'd said about the money. A few days later, I did something I'd been thinking about for a while. I took that $50,000 and I divided it differently. $20,000 went into a fund for Margaret's children's education. They were good kids who'd need help with college someday. And I wanted to be part of that. $10,000 I donated to a local charity that helped overwhelmed parents with free childcare and counseling services. If Margaret was struggling this much, I knew there must be others who needed support too. And $20,000 Robert and I kept for ourselves. We'd worked hard our whole lives. We'd raised our children and helped our parents and supported our community. We deserved to enjoy the years we had left, We used some of it to book a trip to Italy we'd been dreaming about for decades. Thanksgiving arrived cold and gray that year. Margaret called me the week before, her voice tentative. Helen, I was wrong. About everything. I'd really like you and Robert to come for Thanksgiving, no strings attached, I mean it. Even if you never babysit again. I want you there, you're my sister, and I love you. I thought about it, really thought about it. Robert left the decision to me, but I could see in his eyes that he wanted us to go. He'd always loved Margaret, always thought of her as the sister he never had. We'll come, I told her. But I need you to understand something. This isn't me backing down. This is me choosing to forgive and move forward. But the boundaries stay. I'm happy to help with the kids sometimes, when I can, but it has to work for me too, and you have to respect when I say no. Deal, Margaret said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Thanksgiving Day was different that year. Margaret had hired a young woman from the neighborhood to help with the kids during dinner. She'd also talked to David about his travel schedule, and he'd committed to being home more. Things weren't perfect, but they were better. When Robert and I arrived with our green bean casserole and homemade rolls, Margaret hugged me tight at the door. Thank you for coming, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. The day was beautiful. The kids ran around the backyard, their laughter carrying through the crisp autumn air. Robert helped David with the turkey while Margaret and I worked side by side in her old kitchen, the one she still hadn't remodeled. I've been thinking, Margaret said as she mashed potatoes. Maybe I don't need a new kitchen right now. Maybe what I need is to appreciate what I have. I smiled but didn't say anything about the money. Some gifts are better given in different ways. Over dinner, surrounded by family and food and warmth, I looked around the table and felt grateful. Grateful for Robert, who always stood by me. Grateful for my nephews and nieces, who brought so much life and energy into the world. Grateful for my own sons, who called that morning to wish us a happy Thanksgiving. And grateful for Margaret, who'd been brave enough to admit she was struggling, and to accept that she couldn't do everything alone. Before dessert, Margaret St. Ud up and clinked her glass. I want to say something, she announced. The kids quieted down, sensing something important was happening. I want to thank my sister Helen and her husband Robert for being here today. I haven't been fair to them lately, and they had every right to stay away. But they came anyway, because that's who they are. They're good people who love us even when we don't deserve it. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Helen, you've taught me something important these past few weeks. You've taught me that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself completely. That boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary. And that family isn't about keeping score or making demands. It's about showing up for each other, in whatever way we can, and accepting that sometimes our best looks different than we thought it would. I was crying now too. So was Robert. Even the kids looked touched. In that way children do when they sense something meaningful is happening even if they don't fully understand it. After dinner, while the kids played in the living room and the men cleaned up in the kitchen, Margaret and I sat on the back porch with our coffee. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I got a therapist, Margaret said quietly. I started going 2 weeks ago. It's helping. She's helping me see that I was trying to be perfect instead of just being present, that I was so focused on doing everything right, that I was making everyone around me miserable, including myself. I reached over and took her hand. I'm proud of you, I said. That takes courage. She squeezed my hand back. I'm sorry about the money thing. That was manipulative and cruel. I don't even know why I said it. Except I was hurt and I wanted to hurt you back. I took a deep breath. Margaret, I was saving money for your kitchen. For 3 years, I was going to give it to you at Christmas. Her face went pale. Helen, no. After everything I said, after how awful I was. I want you to know that I still love you. I always will. But I've divided that money differently now. $20,000 is in an education fund for your kids. You'll get the paperwork next week. $10,000 I gave to a charity that helps parents who are struggling. And the rest Robert and I are keeping for ourselves. We're going to Italy in the spring. Margaret started crying again, but this time she was smiling too. That's perfect. That's exactly what you should do. And Helen, thank you. Thank you for still loving my kids even when I was terrible to you. Thank you for the education fund. They'll need it. And thank you for choosing yourself too. I think maybe that's the best lesson you could teach me. We sat there on that porch as the sun disappeared and the stars came out, two sisters who'd found their way through a hard time and come out stronger on the other side. The years since that Thanksgiving have been good ones. Margaret and I are closer now than we've been in decades. She respects my boundaries and I make a point to help when I genuinely can. I babysit the kids about once a month. And I cherish that time with them. But I also cherish the time Robert and I spend together, traveling and resting and enjoying the life we've built. We went to Italy last spring. Just like we planned, we walked through ancient ruins and ate pasta in small trattorias and held hands on the bridges of Venice. It was everything we dreamed it would be. And you know what? Margaret sent us postcards. There, her and the kids. They'd drawn pictures of us and written messages about how much they missed us and loved us. When we got home, we framed one of those postcards and hung it in our kitchen. It reminds me every day that love doesn't have to be complicated, that family doesn't require us sacrifice, that the best gift we can give the people we care about is our authentic selves, complete with boundaries and limitations, and the courage to say no when we need to. I'm 66 now. Robert is 66 too. We have more gray hair and more wrinkles, and we move a little slower than we used to. But we also have something precious. We have peace. We have each other. We have a family that respects us. And we have the knowledge that standing up for yourself doesn't mean you love people less. Sometimes it means you love them better. Because real love, the kind that lasts, isn't about demands or ultimatums or keeping score. It's about showing up honestly, setting healthy boundaries, and choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Margaret's kitchen still isn't remodeled, by the way. But her kids are thriving and she's learning to ask for help in healthier ways. David cut back on his travel, and they hired a regular babysitter for Friday nights so they can have date nights. And me? I'm planning our next trip with Robert. We're thinking about Alaska this time. The Northern Lights have been on our bucket list for years. Because life is short, and the people who love you will still love you even when you choose yourself. And the ones who won't? Well, maybe they needed to learn that lesson too. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about family, boundaries, and the wisdom that comes with living fully. Leave a comment below telling us about a time you had to set a difficult boundary with someone you loved. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.